Welcome to the Oracle Scroll. My name is Kevin Walder and I am your host, and I invite you to join my guests and myself as we discuss all things metaphysical. Welcome to episode 14 of the Oracle Scroll. Today, we're going to get to know the Lady of Justice and just what she represents in the major arcana of the tarot. And I will be using some of the information that I supplied in the book Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards, as part of this discussion. In the second part of our episode today, we're going to be talking about labels. Everyone seems to both crave and detest labels, depending on who has applied them and how they've been applied. So the question before us then is, do we need them at all? So let's talk about that a little bit in the second segment. In the third segment, where we take questions from an audience member and draw cards to find some guidance, this one is from Brad and regarding a relationship situation that is all too familiar to many of us. So today, let's just get right into Justice, the 11th card in the deck. The Justice card is a member of the major arcana family, which means that it carries a greater weight in reading and will often point to the real question at hand. Justice, perhaps more than any other card in the deck, speaks of fairness and balance without outside influence. While it is easy to stand up for ourselves and demand that we receive justice, it is often much more challenging to demand that same level of justice from ourselves. The artwork for the Justice card is fairly consistent among most decks, depicting Lady Justice holding the scales in one hand and the sword of justice in the other. This speaks to us of the consequences of our actions and the need to act in a fair and balanced manner in every aspect of our lives. Any injustice we allow or overlook in our world contributes to more imbalance and injustice coming back to us. This requires of us a level of involvement in our community to assure that we are all treated with the same fairness and balance we would hope to receive for ourselves. Doing nothing when injustice prevails in our environment makes us accessories to that imbalance and draws away much needed energy we could have used to restore ourselves. The Justice card is not a call to judgment, allowing us to impose our own interpretations of ethics and morals on those around us, but rather a reminder that true justice and balance is a constantly evolving and maturing state. As we grow in understanding, we become more aware of everyone in our community and their own needs to be dealt with in a fair and balanced manner. So our concept of justice grows with us. This card can be also seen to call for compassion, but it also demands that each of us bear responsibility for our actions. The energy of justice does not give anyone a free pass, but also does not pass prejudicial judgment on our fellow journeyers. Taking things a step further, the energy of justice also demands that we treat ourselves with compassion and mercy as well. Fairness and balance must be extended first to ourselves and then to those around us. When I see the Justice card appear in a reading, I am led to believe that the querent is feeling a lack of fairness and balance in their relationships and personal interactions. It may also indicate that the querent is the peacemaker in social situations where conflict arises. The Justice card says that old injuries and grudges, and old energies as well, need to be cleared and released. Sometimes this may mean that a toxic relationship must be ended or adjusted, but balance must be restored. Very often, this card indicates a legal issue which is unresolved and needs to be settled before the querent can move forward. These may be unsettled debts or lingering issues surrounding a former partnership, but they are sapping the energy of growth and need to be settled. So, the 3 questions that the Justice card leaves with us: how is the energy of the Justice card manifesting in your life right now? How do you handle issues of fairness and balance in your life? And lastly, what is your favorite means of maintaining balance in your life? It'll be different for everyone. And that was taken directly from my book, Tarot for Lunch, Lessons from the Cards. And that is available now on Amazon.com in both paperback and Kindle versions. Continuing to explore the Justice card, I have tried to bring out the first-person description of each of these cards. How would each of these individuals stand up and talk about themselves? And with Lady Justice, I came up with the following. First of all, we have a rare opportunity to discuss the energy and mission of Lady Justice, card number 11 in most decks. Sometimes she's given the number 8, as some tarot experts believe this is a better match for her personality as far as numerology goes. She is interpreted by others as a more abstract manifestation of justice. Without further ado, let's just welcome Lady Justice and hear in her own words the message she has come forward to deliver. You can imagine her voice in place of mine. And good day. I am the 11th card in the major arcana of the tarot, and I bring a sense of balance and balanced energy to any reading where I show up. I am depicted in quite a variety of ways, but I can almost always be seen with a sword and a scale. Oh, and I'm blindfolded, so that my pronouncements are without prejudice or regard for my own opinions and feelings. I am even sometimes depicted as 2 individuals, indicating once again that my energy is balanced and inclusive. I approach my work as a sacred trust to deliver justice whenever I am called upon to guarantee a fair and balanced ruling. Every day when I step into this role, I feel the weight of that scale and know that the situation at hand is depending on my unbiased view. It's a lot of responsibility. I wear the blindfold gladly, though. To some it might appear to be an impediment to what I'm doing, but with it, I know that I am delivering honest, impartial wisdom as promised, and that blindfold lets even the casual, passing observer recognize my firm resolve to do just that. That sword I carry, it's a sharp one and very heavy, indicating that my ruling is final and like a sharp blade cutting away the unnecessary to get to the real substance. It commands respect. I restrict my use of the sword to those situations which require firm enforcement to protect my ruling. Just as I would expect anyone to respect this weapon, I treat it as a last option. I am also often seen with scrolls, indicating my access to ancient knowledge and wisdom, which I frequently call upon in my work. This is an indication that I will be thorough and diligent in my work to guarantee a just outcome for everyone. You may also notice that in all of this, I remain aloof and separate from the process. That's just to eliminate any temptation to rule according to emotion. In remaining unattached and separate, I also eliminate the possibility of being lobbied or influenced by outside energy seeking their own best result. I'm not concerned with advantages, only with equity in all my rulings. One thing I can tell you about my energy is that it is always fair, balanced, and dispassionate. For that reason, you may not always understand my rulings, and they may not seem fair at the time. But balance means that there is one set of laws and rules which applies to all situations and all people. Humans often confuse what is fair and balanced with what is in their own best interest, and that is a very dangerous attitude. We see a lot of it around today, because there are almost assuredly opposing views with equally compelling emotion. I am most often depicted as standing on a pedestal. If you've ever been in that kind of a position, I don't need to tell you that once in a while, you just have to step off that pedestal and stretch your legs and arms just to keep circulation moving. This is my warning to all of you. If you're going to use my decisive energy, be sure to start from a position of strength and comfort. Being in a physically uncomfortable position will cause a hurried and impatient response. I am associated with the Hebrew letter lamed, which means ox goad, and that's an indication of my ability to move a group with a strong suggestion, perhaps. I am also associated with the rune nid, which means necessity. Of course, the presence of the scales indicates that my astrological attribution is Libra. This also is a strong indication that I may not move as quickly as some would prefer. Just as much as I stand for fairness and balance, I also stand for trust. I ask that everyone trust me to do my job as I am directed by law. Though we may not always understand how a particular decision was made or the thought process which produced a particular ruling, we have to trust that the right and proper steps are being taken. While most of my energy is directed at assisting us to remain fair and balanced, we've said that a lot, haven't we? In our interpersonal dealings, I am also a herald of caution in legal matters. I often indicate that a legal issue which remains unaddressed needs some attention. This can be something complex or just something as simple as an unpaid parking ticket. But it will always be an energy drain until it's dealt with and put away. So whether you choose to see me as Lady Justice holding the scales of justice and the sword of execution, or as a benevolent being watching over the delicate natural balances which ensure life continues in a familiar pattern, or even as something more abstract, which many decks have a more abstract view of me, please hear my message of balance and fairness. This is my job, and I take it very, very seriously. I also want to re-emphasize that we are only able to be fair and balanced when we operate from a position of strength. Whenever you feel emotion creeping into your decision-making, it is time to step back for a moment and recall those scrolls that you see me carrying around. They'll give us insight, they'll give us knowledge, and give us the assistance we need to make decisions which are free from emotional contamination. When you feel especially out of balance and closed, you may want to pull me from the deck and just take a look at my image, meditate on my image, and all the subtle hints as to my energy. Before you know it, you will be directing your life as if you were born to the job. And that is a brief look at Lady Justice. In the second segment of the Oracle Scroll, we take a subject of current interest and take a look at it from a spiritual standpoint. Today's topic is labels. And this article came to me because a friend of mine was announcing his embracing a new label for himself. And he was going to begin proclaiming that he's insert the label, whatever you choose. With this particular friend, this seems to be an almost monthly, sometimes weekly process of choosing a new label. I began to reflect on labels and what they mean to us in our modern society and how we react to them, how that sets the tone for our fulfillment in life. When visiting your local supermarket, we find the greatest preponderance of labels, which helps us to locate familiar products or warn us away from harmful ingredients. Labels help direct us to new experiences by describing in detail the benefits of a particular product or service. In fact, street names and numbers are another form of labeling that's very beneficial to us, makes our travel much more efficient and enjoyable. When it comes to labels that we assign to one another, that we might assign to a fellow human, oh boy, then we get ourselves into a lot of trouble and very quickly. Some labels, they're assigned by the legal system, and others are assigned by society at large, so that in the same neighborhood, and even sometimes even closer to home than that, we can find those who wear the labels of sex offender, felon, war hero, philanthropist, business leader, sportsman, father, son, brother. They're all labels. In seeking to label ourselves or others, we run the risk of negating an entire part of our life in the process of honoring that one area which we feel needs labeling. As I peruse the list above, I'm reminded of a recent case in our own area where the individual accurately wore each of those labels. So all those labels that I read off earlier, actually one person had each of those labels applied to him at various points. Those who knew him in local social and political circles only knew of the more positive labels that he'd been assigned by his peers, while certain young men who had opportunity to connect with him on a personal level recognized him by the first two labels on the list, that of sex offender and felon. Labels help us every single day to be in the right place, be purchasing the correct replacement of the product we have gotten used to using. Labels are highly effective in protecting us from allergens and other harmful products that are in our marketplace. Even labels assigned by society can be helpful in warning us away from people with certain toxic traits. And our learning to read those labels accurately is key to our own survival. When we are tempted to add labels to those around us, we must approach this process with extreme care. How can we ever be sure we have all the information needed to accurately label a fellow human? What might we have overlooked or misunderstood which could alter the label we have so confidently applied? Once it's applied by our own mind, that label that we've assigned to our fellow becomes unchangeable. And we tend to find ways to make them either live up or live down to the label that we've given them. We can find all kinds of reasons why they deserved that label. Now, what does all this have to do with my Ima friend who is fond of collecting labels? Well, labels work well for inanimate objects and not so well for humans. In the rush to label ourselves as any particular thing or type of individual, we are sometimes creating a comfort zone which functions more effectively as a barrier to future growth. There are many times in our lives when the addition of a new label may have some limiting effect on our growth. In fact, it may be safe to say that for every door opened by embracing a new label, at least one other door is closed. So when determining which label to wear, we need to weigh the cost and the benefits involved. As with most aspects of this human experience, finding balance is the most challenging and important work we have to accomplish. So, when considering a new label for ourselves, we should ask, what will we be asked to sacrifice in order to fully accept this new label? Will acceptance of this new label require us to disavow an important part of our life? And finally, does this new label limit me in any way? So labels, they can be important. We can recognize that importance, but we really don't need them when we're talking about ourselves and our fellow human beings. In our third and final segment of the Oracle Scroll, we take a question from an audience member and draw some cards from the tarot for guidance. See if we can come up with some practical wisdom for their use. Today, we have a question from Brad. And Brad says, my wife and I are going through some relationship challenges which mostly revolve around money. We have very different attitudes toward money, with me being the more practical manager, which leads to both of us feeling completely frustrated. Now, before I respond, this is probably the most common relationship problem, even though it may hide itself and may looking as if it is something else. A lot of times this money issue is a big one. It's hard to bring two people together with exactly the same value system. It's just almost impossible. So my response to Brad is, first of all, thank you, Brad, for your question. I drew 3 cards for you, and they are the Page of Coins, the Ace of Cups, and the 3 of Cups. And then I went on to draw a 4th card as a bit of clarification, and it is the Sun. So, starting off with that first card, first of all, Brad, as I mentioned above, your situation is very typical of long-term relationships, whether there's a marriage involved or not. So, the first card I picked up was the Page of Coins. This card suggests to me that your money management skills could be at the core of these issues. Your frugality is a great asset to building a nest egg, but when carried too far, it can become restrictive and confining, especially to someone who is more of a spender. This card is suggesting that you take a hard look at your approach to spending and see how you might be able to relax your grip in some areas, allowing your wife to set certain limits and having worked on those together and set them together. Secondly, the Ace of Cups says that your relationship is due for a reboot. It is time to get back to the reasons that you are together in the first place. What was it that drew you to her and her to you? How can you reset your expectations for each other to begin building together again? We all start out in that idyllic place of building something together, and then it kind of just sort of slowly degenerates until we both are headed in opposite directions and we're not pulling together anymore. So that's going to be key, is finding that common ground, that part where you definitely agree and your values sync up perfectly, and accent that. The Three of Cups comes along and basically reiterates the message of the Page of Coins, what the first card that we pulled. And it suggests that you try to see the experience of life from your wife's viewpoint. Oh boy, that's not hard. That's not easy. This card is sometimes called the party card. And the message of this card is to put the fun back into the relationship. These projects will not always be easy and will require cooperation from you both. So reestablishing your commitment to each other is the place to start. Now, I drew a fourth card, as you recall, just for clarification, and it is the Sun. Since this is one area which can be quite contentious, I wanted to get a peek at the future. And actually, it looks very, very promising. This card suggests that the relationship is built on a solid foundation. It just needs a little remodeling to keep up with the times. In summary, you will need to look closely at all your accounts and how they are being managed, and then determine if some of your frustration could be alleviated by relaxing your rules a bit and working together to establish a workable budget that allows for some flexibility. And it's time to rebuild this relationship. The foundation is strong, but this particular issue needs immediate attention. Get back to where you both started in this relationship and remember what you are together. Right now, this week, you need to plan a date night and let your wife play an active role in planning it. This date night is solely for the purpose of spending quality time together and enjoying your togetherness. Finally, everything points to a positive outcome. Include your wife in the management of the household, truly listening to her concerns so that it becomes a prosperous and happy working partnership. Remember that you both have feelings and expectations, and all of them are equally important. So, Brad, I'm hoping that this has been some insight and will be helpful information for you. Thank you very much for your question. And if you have a question you would like to have addressed in such a way, please send that along to us at theoraclescroll@gmail.com. And this concludes episode 14 of the Oracle Scroll. We thank you for joining us and ask that you please subscribe and pass along the information to friends and neighbors, everyone that you think might be interested, so that they have access to this information as well. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on episode 15. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Oracle Scroll. Find us on Facebook at the Oracle Scroll. If you wish to send comments, suggestions, or requests, please address them to theoraclescroll@gmail.com.